and welcome to a special edition of Trader Talk. This week we are coming live from Farringdon for our Christmas special, and we have a live studio audience here in the pub. Round of applause. Thank you very much. We have two editions coming out on our end of year special. The first is a reflection on 2014, and the second is a prediction, a look forward to 2015. This panel will discuss the great happenings of ad tech and digital advertising over the last 12 months. And we are joined by four esteemed gentlemen from the industry, and I let them introduce themselves before we jump into the happenings of this year.
Hello, I'm Anthony Ryan from Karen.
Thank you.
Set the tone there, hasn't he? I'm Nigel Gilbert from AppNexus.
I'm Danny Hopwood from VivaKey.
Martin Kelly, Infectious Media.
Thank you, gentlemen. So we're going to start off with each person's sort of highlight of the year. I'm going to start with Martin. Each has got a different view of the industry, agency, tech provider. So let's talk with Martin first. Martin, what was your big highlight of the year before we sort of jump into the meat and bones of stuff?
A highlight or most significant things of the year?
Well, not personal, just...
I mean, the whole Facebook thing has been really interesting for me this year, actually seeing that they have decided to kind of play in the ecosystem. And what role they're going to play is still a bit unclear, I think, but that for me is probably the most significant move this year from anyone that I've seen. A bit concerning in some ways because it seems quite walled garden, but that for me I think is the most significant thing that I've seen this year.
Danny?
I mean, something that I've probably spoken to quite a few different people about in this room, and a word that I've said countless times, but consolidation. Like, we've just seen so much consolidation this year, so much M&A activity, so many companies being bought and merged and acquired, and some, you know, that have not made the journey through to 2014, if I'm honest, or 2015. That's been, like, not a highlight, but I'd say the most significant thing that I've seen this year.
So it's best to have already gone now, haven't they, really?
We will jump into these in more details, like, just what was your particular...
Well, so I think, I mean, just to answer the question the same with these chaps, I think probably the most significant is Facebook and Atlas. I think that's a real game changer. Consolidation is a very good one. I think that the highlight for me, the thing I've enjoyed watching the most, is Yahoo coming into all this cash, and they're speculating with everybody in this room about what they're going to spend it on. I think that's actually been kind of enjoyable.
Brian O'Kelly, you could buy Brian O'Kelly again.
Conceivably, that's very true. So yeah, I'll go with that. I think certainly it's in line with these concepts too. But I think the spending spree that Yahoo have been on for the last few months, I think I found it quite interesting what sort of decisions they've made to see how a company like that puts the pieces together.
And I'm not going to give a highlight, I'm going to talk about something significant. I think the privacy and regulation area is something that is really becoming material in the minds of our clients this year. And also some of the implications for Google coming out of the position being taken by regulators in Europe. So I think that's incredibly significant. And we're not seeing the impact of it yet, we're just feeling the rumbles coming out of it.
Okay, I mean, you guys obviously touched on one of the big things this year was consolidation and massive M&A action. So let's talk about the area that was the hottest of all. I think there was like nearly between $1 and $2 billion transactions in the video market. Everybody bought somebody. Spot Exchange bought somebody. Facebook bought somebody. Even Yahoo bought somebody, which is unbelievable. Right roll, you know, great company. 750, I'm not quite sure. But let's talk about that. Why video? I mean, it's an obvious question, but why? What's the significance of all these big companies buying video space, particularly the big media companies? RTL buying Spot Exchange was interesting. So let's start there, and then let's obviously walk our way through. Andy, what do you think of why video? Why was it such a hot sector?
I mean, what you're touching on there with RTL particularly is the TV space, trying to work out how it moves itself into a model where it has an understanding of a segmented trading model and a real-time trading model. I think that is interesting. We're seeing some other moves in that area. Obviously, there was the acquisition by Comcast of Freewheel, which I think was very interesting in that area. You've got AdSmart coming to market around the start of the year, not seen much scaling beyond that, and you've got 4 on demand just the other day talking about some programmatic trading of TV ads in the video environment, in the platform environment. So there's the TV people trying to work out what to do in this space and how they at some point will move away from the linear GRP type model. At the same time, you've got video as a more scarce and higher priced inventory area, allowing or helping certain parts of the programmatic ecosystem move out of that non-specified remnant ghetto that our space has been characterized as, even though that's an oversimplification. So video is accelerating in that whole area. And then there's the fact that video is a more natural format to create value in mobile, which we know is an area that's not really been resolved. So there's quite a few different streams going on in video.
Danny, you, from an agency perspective, or trading desk perspective, is this consolidation video, particularly video, good for you as a buyer?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I've said before, I think consolidation is a good thing because it reduces the volume of complexity that this market has generated over the past 3 to 4 years. I think, to touch on Anthony's point, absolutely right. It's because it's tied in with what's happening in TV. But I think the next, the very simple logic to why it's happened is because display got done in the years up to this year. Like the mergers, the acquisitions, that was done and dusted. Video, the next biggest market, rightly followed suit and then has now started to be pulled into that platform scenario as well. And I think already towards the back end of this year, you can see the next channel, mobile, already getting pulled in. There's been countless acquisitions of mobile DSPs to the back end of this year and mergers at the same time. So I think next year you might see more and more of these mobile plays becoming part of either an already established stack or an independent established stack.
And video, I mean, do you think mobile is going to be the next hot area? Martin, is that going to be? It feels to me the market's still evolving.
I mean, it's got to be by default, right? But it brings its own set of complexities with it, and I don't think the kind of technologies to piece mobile together properly are fundamentally all there. I also think, going back to that Facebook point, that is going to impact that ecosystem so much. So I think there's still a lot of uncertainty around that space.
And was the Facebook acquisition of LiveRail a big move by Facebook? I mean, are they looking? You've seen them roll out Atlas, buying LiveRail, and then thinking about how they move the next sort of couple of steps, leveraging that Facebook data, using LiveRail as a means to build a third-party network effect.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, these guys have already nailed the point that video is one of the sort of final pieces to the puzzle. If you're going to run a consolidated media plan, you're going to be able to access, let's say, sort of unified pieces of inventory from single partners. But if you look at the guys that have made these acquisitions, Facebook, Yahoo, put the large broadcasters aside because they've got a natural fit to try to leverage their premium video and try to find a way to optimize those things. It speaks to that concept of the walled garden of data, and obviously therefore they've got such strong assets. It doesn't necessarily mean a great deal if they can't leverage that across all platforms. So they have to have a video play in order to do that. In most cases, not every case, they've acquired actually top line revenue. So you can't fault that. That's not a poor acquisition when you acquire a profitable company. But it's really the basics that they've been buying. It's video hosting, video ad serving, optimizing a video towards things like reach, slightly different concepts to what programmatic desktop would do. So frankly, I just think it's been that race. Most of them could have built that themselves. Frankly, Facebook could have done. A video ad server's not beyond them. Let's be honest. But it's obviously a bit of additional reach and top line revenue straight out of the gate as well.
Okay. I suppose they definitely can build it, but then they have to invest the time in to pull the publishers into it at the same time. Like by doing it, they just get them straight in the door from day one.
Yeah.
I wonder though if it was maybe too early. I mean, I think LiveRail was a very interesting company, but pretty early in its evolution. So if they were using it to activate an operated marketplace proposition, it almost, I would wonder whether or not it didn't have the scale of revenue commitment to those partners to make it impossible to turn off. So if they decided they didn't want to play with Facebook in an operated fashion, it wouldn't be a huge loss to turn them off, given I don't think LiveRail had that scale of billings running through it. So if they were trying to consolidate an operated supply, they could have bought something that had more scale. I accept your points about the video pieces of that being a unique capacity.
Yep.
But I just think it was surprising to me that it was so early that they made the acquisition.
I mean, part of it just feels like tick box acquisitions.
Yeah.
Around video, as I say, we've done that and we've got one.
Certainly once the first one went,
But is it not-
the others followed incredibly quickly.
But is it not Facebook, like Facebook being a good example, but is not Facebook kind of aping the strategy of Google and building a stack? Like if you see Google, you know, they've got buy side, sell side, exchange, everything, like data. Facebook have the same kind of amount of data. Would they not just ape their strategy and live rel? It's just part of that puzzle to begin with. Like.
I'm not sure that you can't criticise Google's strategy. It's a very successful company.
It's a great
I think
company.
if you're gonna copy anybody's
That's why people want to
path,
break it up. It's a great company.
then they're a good one to follow.
Yeah.
But I think that obviously a lot of these companies are considering the fact they could make those exchanges or those sources of inventory more successful. If you look at the numbers, just take the UK market. Programmatic video it's $100 million. $100 million in a $3 billion market.
Yeah.
Only
now it'll get bigger. Obviously.
Well, obviously it's going to get bigger, just through organic growth and the fact that these guys can actually extract the value from those video placements. Because scarcity in VOD, the premium placements, is very well known, very well documented. But the long tail doesn't have that intrinsic value unless it has data attached to it and or a cross-platform play. And so frankly, there's not that many other places that would be natural homes for these companies where they could actually even get that value.
Yeah.
So I have to say, if I was a video platform now looking for an exit, I might be a bit. Although I don't actually think there's any left. I think they've all gone. Yeah.
Come on, let's be honest. There was like Telstra bought somebody. They bought Video Plaza. There's still a bunch of telco companies out there with cash. There's still some big sort of media companies who want to get. Like Sky haven't really bought anybody yet. Like they can make a move. There's still some opportunities there. Sure.
I think Comcast will probably make the big next one. Like they bought Freewill, which so they bought the ad serving side, they bought the supply side, if you will. They're really looking for a buy side. Like so, there's a buy side opportunity now more than ever from a big company somewhere.
Well, you've got AT&T.
And who is a DSP for video only services buy side right now?
It's a trick question. Or?
No, you've already said it.
All right, yeah. Okay.
But again, the other players that are in this space, you've got Vodafone and Telefonica buying up TV companies, cable companies in a lot of markets around the world, and you've got AT&T, which obviously bought DirecTV. So there are many other players that are buying the supply of content components and the distribution to users, but without a new model advertising infrastructure in place. So I think there's a lot of companies that will be fighting to make acquisitions to understand how to manage user-level trading of advertising.
So moving from video, let's talk about the agencies, because the agencies have been very, very active in buying companies and investing in companies this year. We're obviously not going to put Nigel on the spot here, but it's a great opportunity to do so.
No, we're not going to put Nigel on the spot, we know.
The agencies obviously have made some big strategic moves, Andy. Particularly WPP, they've been very active in the market, buying ad networks, investing in technology, and buying sort of ad tech related companies. How do you see that sort of rolling out? Obviously, Publicis as well. Don't forget, Publicis invested a huge amount of money in Matomi and bought a mobile DSP as well / DMP. I'm not really sure what to do, but Run DMC. I thought they were a hip hop band when they actually acquired them, but that's just me. But I'm just saying, in terms of sort of how you see this rolling out and how you see the strategy around that, is it a good thing that WPP are investing, and do you see more sort of holding groups doing something similar?
It's an interesting one. I think I'm sure we're going to hear all about the what was behind the AppNexus transaction, but the price of 25 million and the percentage of the company acquired suggested that was a deal that was cooked quite a few years ago and announced at this point. So I'm not sure. I think that one's been in the works for a while. I think that Sapient Nitro is a more interesting, or Sapient is a more interesting transaction by Publicis than either Matomi or Run DMP. But
it's really is a really
It's called Run DMC.
In your mind. But I think that's interesting because what they're essentially getting is a business that has a business model around consulting rather than commissions and what other ways agencies make money.
So was it just an agency buying another agency?
The fact that they because I don't think, I mean, Sapient only had a piece of their business that was in an agency structure.
Okay.
The rest of it was in the consulting business and the outsourcing 2,000 odd people in India that build infrastructure. To me, that's the transformative piece potentially. But the reality is Publicis is a very complicated organization that's already bought an awful lot of companies in the digital integrated marketing services space. It's going to be interesting to see how Sapient becomes the one that makes all of that friction of integration suddenly resolve itself. I think that's going to be an interesting prediction that Casper no doubt will make for 2015.
So just go to the other non-conflicted person in this panel, i.e. Martin. What do you think of these holding groups sort of buying tech, investing in tech? Is it smart? Is it a move motivated by the fear of Google and Facebook and what they're doing? Is it kind of trying to protect their own?
Well, I think it's a clear signal that this is the way things are going, which is obvious. But I think most of the holding companies were burned by technology investment, probably in the early 2000s, high-profile stuff that went wrong, and I think then it was quite easy to build a kind of Betamax piece of crap that didn't have any longevity. But now I think the technology ecosystem is a lot more open, and it's easy to build technology that interconnects stuff. I think is what you're seeing. I think the WPP thing was really interesting with AppNexus, just in terms of say actually we don't want to own it, but we want to be a part of it. And I think speaking as a builds technology on, I think part of that is just driven by being able to keep up with the pace of change actually. And if you're not 100% focused on that, it's actually really difficult to keep up with everything that's going on. And also, if I think an agency also becomes very conflicted if it builds its own tech, as it's just you have to use our own technology even if it's not best in class. How can you recommend that? And that is a conflict that I don't think has come out yet, and it needs to be resolved at some point, and that'd be interesting to see.
So Danny, tell me why you invested 25 million in an Israeli ad network.
Well,
personally,
yeah, many different reasons.
Did you sign that off?
To be honest, I think every big holding group has a part of their business which is focused on generating revenue by investment into other companies, not necessarily to start to use that technology internally, like to bring Matomi in and start to make use of that piece of technology within AOD. Doesn't make that much sense. But as a piece of business, and as Martin's already said, like in the past, a lot of holding groups have had their fingers burnt by investing in technology. I think, as we've already kind of discussed, the market's matured a little bit. There's a little bit more stable market in terms of what you can do with that technology. And this is, from my perspective on this, and I'm not privy to those conversations, unfortunately. I would suspect it is a conversation around it's a good business that's making money, and why not have a slice of that pie?
Okay. Good, short, political, straight answer there. And Nigel, do you go on holidays with Martin Sorrell? Will we see shots on Facebook of you and Martin?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm sure it'd be quite good fun.
Yeah.
It seems to go on holiday with Martin Sorrell.
Yeah.
Let's address this at this point on a few levels. Firstly, Publicis investing in Matomi is another great example of wonderfully successful business. Matomi's long-time AppNexus client, shining light for us in Israel. So WPP is not the only company supporting the open ecosystem.
Yeah.
But I think what we've all seemed to have, let's say, skirted over to this point, which I'd love to be able to focus on for a minute, is the actual purpose of that deal was to transact OAS, Open Ad Stream, to AppNexus. The nature of the transaction was the consequence of the deal. But funnily enough, that's where all of the headlines have been focused. But I think the purpose of that and the concept behind that really speaks to what the objective really was. So Martin's point is very well made, which is that they didn't want to own it, obviously, because that makes it's a natural conflict. But agency companies are not strangers to owning pieces of technology, and that's also very common. But the notion of OAS, second largest publisher ad server in the world, something like 18-19% market share, WPP is saying, look, if we don't do something about this, then there's a reasonable chance that Google's going to be able to effectively run away with the whole market.
So what you're trying to say is that they give you OAS for this amount of money, so you could build a competitive solution to DFP?
I think that would be a very sensible way for a company like WPP to think about this kind of deal, because somebody needs to be able to compete. If you fast forward a year, 2 years, and you take that transaction out of the picture, what Class 1 publisher ad server is going to be there?
Well, hopefully there's 2 or 3 next year.
It'd be nice, but it's pretty hard to build a Class 1 ad server from scratch. And so, that was actually the main focus. And that's a big area of focus for us. We want to be able to provide the sellers with a legitimate alternative to the DFP stack, the DFP AdX stack that is the way that Google's presenting things today. And again, it's not unusual for an agency to want to retain the concepts of an open ecosystem. So I think the second part of it is WPP, again, let's say benefiting, as do all agencies, from the fact that there isn't a consolidation of supply. Agencies are largely built on the fact that there is fragmentation, and they're in a position to negotiate and leverage sellers and leverage their heft. The technology that they use, let's say the core infrastructure, isn't really where the differentiation comes from. Like, let's be honest, you could almost liken it to the email systems that agencies have been planning and buying on for the last 5 years. Publicists haven't been at a disadvantage with Lotus Notes, any more than other people have had an advantage with Outlook.
Yeah.
The bidding infrastructure is not the differentiation. WPP are quick to realise that. Differentiation all exists outside of that. And to sign it off, I think the other acquisitions that you've seen in market this year are a testament to that. So you could look at Matomi, great example. They run our tech across their whole business. Bizzo, one of my personal favourites to LinkedIn. That's an AppNexus business. In actual fact, Russell Glass was quoted at our summit saying, if you spend your time worrying about building technology, you can't build differentiation. So they transacted, found an exit.
That the agencies see an opportunity WPP see an opportunity to build around your stack. Proprietary, differentiation, point solutions, whatever they build internally that will actually give them some kind of competitive advantage over the other groups.
I think the comment is exactly right, but it goes further than that. The fact that AppNexus, in terms of the buy-side platforms that are available, offers extensibility that is rare in other areas. And also AppNexus isn't necessarily a threat to the agency in a way that the other, let's say, more traditional DSPs are, in terms of the way that they approach the market.
Yeah.
And having that investment from partners doesn't put pressure on us to have to go around the agencies. So again, it puts us in a good position to work with as many agencies as is possible.
So that South of France holiday will happen.
No, it's me and Casper. I'm not going with Mark.
It's interesting though, because advertisers aren't passive about this anymore in terms of the technology that's used to execute them, because wrapped up in their data. They want be a part of that discussion about.
Yep.
It's not like DDS, that everyone had to use, and it's a piece of technology an agency uses, and that's fine. It's something that is of strategic value to an advertiser as well, and the platform, the DSPs, actively talking to advertisers as well. So
we will go into that. We will go into that in a minute. So it's actually, that leads nicely to the fate of the trading desk. Is 2014 the year that we kind of bury the trading desk term? There was a lot of talk about this sort of execution there, coming back into the actual agencies within the holding group, and trading desk sort of becoming almost like a consultative layer, or if you're Xaxis, a SSN, we'll talk about that Casper later on, but helping sort of aggregate supply and data and becoming sort of more of a sort of value add sort of to the agencies themselves. So are we seeing the end of the centralized trading desk essentially within the holding groups? This is a good question for you, Anton.
I think that the scale of the expertise in all of the agency groups now around programmatic has expanded to the point where there's less need to group it in one tight cell where people can cross projects, cross knowledge, help create a learning environment to accelerate knowledge capture. I think most of the groups now have got sufficient volume of experts that disseminating those experts into account teams is now an option. Mm-hmm. And for many clients, that's essential, because what you really want to have is the teams of people that are managing all of the bought activity, and we can also talk about the owned and the earned environments, but all of the bought activity in a connected fashion, because you've got non-platform bought media, and then you've got media bought through a variety of platforms, obviously a variety of DSP platforms, including for desktop, mobile, video, but then you've got paid social, paid search, YouTube. So you've got this variety of different teams that are operating with the same goal in many instances, so they have to collaborate. So putting those people together to manage an integrated executional layer, but then still connecting them with strategists and people that have deep insight into the client's business and understanding the message prioritization is very logical. So I think we're seeing in quite a lot of our clients that integrated team being something that's essential to ensure the right decisions are made quickly enough, but you then still have to have an infrastructure to ensure the edge of knowledge is not dulled by that dissemination of the expertise across the organisation.
Okay. Danny, obviously you've got an interesting view in this. How do you see things panning out, over the next 12 months, and how do you see the role of your organisation?
Well, I think programmatic, when it first began, it was considered this kind of little bit of like this dirty thing in the corner that we had to kind of focus on a little bit because it was something that could potentially turn into something quite amazing at some point. And everyone scrapped around for bits and pieces of budgets, which mostly came from DR. And you're running campaigns, and when you look across the agencies back then, it was all the direct buys, all the ad network buys, and then some in-house managed programmatic media. The truth is that tiny little bit of in-house traded programmatic media has started to swell into something that's been quite big across the whole industry, and every agency has started to do this more and more. With that has become a realization that actually there could be a completely different way to trade digital media as a whole. Like, there will still be direct campaigns and there will still be ad network campaigns, but there is going to be a big chunk that can be traded programmatically internally within an agency. So with that, the planners and buyers that exist within the agencies right now have to learn from that centralized expertise that's been built in any agency group to take on the ability to start to trade and buy programmatically. And that's my genuine belief that that's what's happening. Like, in a way, every agency group has incubated programmatic to the point where it's become an understood process and platform-driven part of that business. And now it's about, as Anthony said, disseminate back into the business. There will still be elements, though, that will have to be centralized. Yeah. Like, irrelevant of just logging into a DSP, there's going to be elements of that DSP which will be decided and built and processed at a centralized point.
Martin, obviously you're competitive to all these entities. You're a next generation agency. How do you see things panning out at the big sort of holding groups? And is this an opportunity for you to steal more business from them?
I think the agency holding companies, they've got the model wrong. I think that's clear from what you see advertisers doing now, which is asking for that model to be decentralized and taken down to agency level. Programmatic to them, to a lot of advertisers, is a line on a media plan. The trading desk sits next to an ad network, sits next to a direct buy, and that's kind of fundamentally missed the point. And advertisers they see that and they want that expertise at agency level. In fact, people at agencies want that expertise as well. They want to be able to speak to the people running campaigns. But I think it comes down to the model was wrong for advertisers, but it was right for holding companies because they could centralize it. They had a very good commercial model that suited them, that was run centrally, and all the benefits of programmatic, the efficiency side of it, they all went to the holding companies as opposed to being disseminated out to the advertisers. So,
but not one mention there of expertise. Like, centralizing it generated a lot of expertise.
Yeah, which is right for you.
Yeah,
it's actually wrong for your advertisers because what's possible has been lost in that connection. I mean, the subset of advertisers that I see are unhappy with that centralization. They want that knowledge in the people they talk to day in, day out. And I think that the gap between what they hear and read about programmatic and what they might see on a media plan as just a line has been a disappointment for them.
If that's the case, though,
we've been through cycles, though, haven't we? I mean, again, if you think about it, we had media and creative separating back in the late 80s, and clients would then complain about the fact that you needed to have media and creative coming together. But it separated because the media was not given significant scope to evolve, to expand, to sophisticate. And again, I think programmatic, had we not gone through that incubation phase of building pools of experts that would innovate at a time when it was a very nascent space and try and push vendors, partners, supply side and buy side to offer new functionality. You needed to have a core of experts that could almost commission and pull that through, because everyone was moving so quickly that priorities had to be, some things were dropping off the prioritization list because other things were getting done. You needed to have a group of people that would commission the right things. Of course, it didn't always work, but that was why we had to centralize. But now it's getting to that scale point where it's got to get pushed out. You can't afford to lose that central expertise either. As Danny said, you've still got to have a group of people that are trying to drive to the next horizon, but we've got to find a better way of pushing it out. And it's not just the programmatic space. You still can look at search, which is pretty mature in the budgeting process and critical in the driving of contribution to the client's bottom line. And we still have insufficient knowledge disseminated in a client structure and in a planning structure. So, it's just the nature of complexity in our space.
So hold on. We'll go on to the next question because we're actually running tight for time, and I want to open it to the audience because they've been sitting here very patiently. So that leads to the next question.
Should be allowed
no, Nigel will ask the next question. Don't worry, he speaks a lot anyway.
Martin will tell him off.
No, it's okay. So obviously this leads to the next question. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of chatter, a lot of rubbish written about in-housing here. This company's in-housing that. They're all in-housing this. The Americans think it's some kind of revolution, but in actual fact it's actually bullshit. But I want to talk about the reality of in-housing and how sort of it's been spun out of control and why it's not actually happening, because Martin touched on it. A lot of the tech vendors have service layers. So when a pitch for business, and we're in this room, we all know each other. We know that the likes of the DSPs, you can name them offhand, and you can name them off camera. They're all pitching for business, including Google. DBM are pitching for managed business against their own clients. That's a reality. Every man in the street knows. Every dog in the street knows that. So my question is, in-housing, is it bullshit, and will there always be a service layer? That's actually not really a question. It's a statement. You can agree with me or disagree.
Agree. But I think there's a distinction to be made that yes, like these companies might be pitching to manage campaigns and run the campaigns, but they're not doing it because they want to run them. They're doing it because they want that budget on their platform. Like, they don't want that budget on someone else's platform. So if in the short term they have to pitch in and offer a managed service to guarantee that spend coming into their platform, they'll absolutely do that.
I slightly disagree with that.
Okay.
I think it's fair. Yeah. Sorry, Danny.
No, it's all right.
I can't disagree with anything Anthony says, so I've got to try and keep up with it first. But
Casper's not in his plan. Everything he says, oh yes, Casper.
That's pretty harsh, I think. That's more of a personal slur than
No. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, so I don't remember what I was saying now. I disagree with it on a couple of levels. There are some tech vendors that you would see who are motivated to get budget into their platform, but those are the large walled garden players. That's a Google play. That's a Facebook play. Their goal is to go to the advertisers and get those guys to aggregate everything and say search retargeting data is most important. Put it in this big fire hose of money. We'll spray it at the sellers, and then they can all move to our platform as well, and we can all live happily ever after. That's a problem, and that's the ecosystem that we're all trying to avoid. But I think the other tech vendors you're talking about, the DSPs that shall not be named or are being named off camera,
they're sponsors.
the situation that you've got there is a completely different one. You've got a conflict of business models. Then you've got conflict of funding. There's not enough money being spent by the agency trading desk today that even if any of these DSPs can get 10% share, 15% share, 20% share of all programmatic on a tech margin, they will all be out of business in 6 months. It's as simple as that. They need more spend, and they need it now. You do that by talking up the industry, by saying there's more money in it than there actually is, and convincing the advertiser they should be spending more. It's pretty common tactic, also very credible. And the second one, of course, is trying to create new markets. That whole concept of MarTech, great, but 2, 3, 4 years too early. And then also you've got to look at what in-housing really means. Like, what is it legitimate for them to in-house? Because if you're buying media from one site, great. If you're buying media from 400 sites, not so interesting, not so exciting, particularly difficult. Difficult the agencies have is what they really need to do. Like the trade desk itself is, in some ways, some cases, not all cases, is defensive to the Criteos and the Strucks and the Sociomantics. Those guys came in.
They've all been acquired.
And which they're all about to be. Those guys are just fantastic at managing data. They're not really media buyers, they're data analysts.
They're admirals.
They're exceptionally good at managing data. And the agency says, well, wait a minute, you should do this with us, but hang about, We're not actually that good at managing data yet. We need to get to that point. But then when they do, agencies are significantly better at dealing with publishers and much better at buying media.
Yeah.
I think then you're going to see a complete evolution. But while it's still defensive, and you can't just take that network business model and squeeze it into an agency because the margins don't stack up and the clients don't trust them. They have to evolve that concept and build it into something that makes sense for them. And just keep an eye on the tech vendors. They're not all bad people, but they've got situations
good people.
there's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Anton, what do you think in-housing is just a lot of hot air? Or?
No, I don't think it's hot air at all. I think that particularly in the US market, there's a scale of activity running through programmatic that makes it a viable scale of relationship for a DSP to take a large advertiser's business and staff it in-house. I'm not sure that it's viable outside of the US marketplace, because to have the scale, there would need to be a localization into so many markets that there would have to be a service layer on the ground in too many locations. And I don't see it being something that many advertisers have the scale to sustain outside of a US market.
So
the problem is that those US clients that are able to have that conversation and put the volume through in the US, they normally have what they sometimes refer to as international business, which is obviously all of the rest. And that creates friction, because actually suddenly it becomes very difficult to service that and staff it, because a lot of the DSPs do not have a mature footprint of local market operations. So it creates a situation where the clients are often disappointed by the experience once they've gone to an in-house solution. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a cycle that we're in a stage of at the moment.
Okay. Thank you, Anton. So we're going to put out the questions in the audience. One or two short questions before I give out the presents, which are really good.
You got to put the hat back on before you do that.
I will put the hat back on. So does the audience, the live studio audience, and there's hundreds of people here. Unbelievable. Like they're hanging out the door. There's like, oh my God, there's a fight breaking out outside of the tickets. So yes, has anybody in the audience got a question for our esteemed panel? Oh look, this gentleman here. Could you make yourself known?
Yeah, I'm Rob from IDG, and we jumped on programmatic quite early. I find it interesting you spoke about half an hour on programmatic. I don't think the word publisher was mentioned.
What's a publisher?
Kieran,
He didn't ask any questions.
Blame the question master. Yeah, exactly.
So I just wondered what you think, publishers need to do and what's going to happen there in 2040.
Well,
to be part of this massive ecosystem.
Well, if I may.
Well, let
firstly,
the publisher champion speak, please.
Thank you very much. I might use that. Just to defend the panel slightly, we did talk about publishers a little bit towards the beginning, but with the notion of ad serving and what the options are going to be. But in terms of the way that the programmatic stacks up for those guys, obviously the way RTB is set up today, and we don't need to go into that. It's not all RTB and the different things with programmatic. I think we've got a well-educated audience in the room here. But the concept of RTB and the transactions today don't work very well for a seller. They can't forecast revenue, they don't necessarily know who's bidding, they can't understand bid density, they can't understand what changes to make on placements. And more to the point, all of the market growth that's been coming has been sucked up by Google and Facebook, so they can't invest either. They're having to take money away from competitors, and what you end up with is a very sort of homogenous, somewhat static market where everyone's sort of doing a similar thing but not really adding any value. So publishers are obliged now to differentiate. IDG obviously does have competitors in its sector, but IDG will be better or worse than them for various reasons. So if everybody is just throwing inventory in at floor price or just doing private marketplaces, how far is that really going to go? You guys need to be able to leverage data, create profiles, build audiences, and really understand how that works. And then, you are also in a position.
Very well, so we're on it.
Wonderful. And whatever you do, by the way, with managing data, you should absolutely do it with Oracle. Wonderful business. Highly recommended.
We do not approve any DNP in this sense.
So I'll cut it short to give these other fellows a chance to answer the question, but it's that notion of really understanding your inventory. It has to be. You can't be tied to a one-dimensional strategy.
But I think we spoke quite a lot, and Helen have as well, around what you've been doing, and I think you are actually going quite far ahead in what you're doing. Like you're already working with what you can do with your audience data. You're already starting to think about how you can segment your inventory and package that up to different inventory options. Like I think the track you're on is already on a track that potentially other publishers who started that track earlier are at now. You know, there is big publishers like eBay who are very advanced in how they make their inventory and their data available in this space, and are probably tipping the scales in terms of the volume of spend that they get from programmatic to what they used to get directly. I mean, it's no reason they pulled it out of Ad to One, and they do a lot of them stuff themselves now. So I think it's empowered them to kind of take their own message to market. And equally, I think, you know, I've never had as many meetings with you guys as I've never had a meeting with you before until we started working together programmatically.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. I think on that note, we'll start giving out the presents. So a round of applause for. This is where I put my hat on. Okay.
It's all you've been waiting for, isn't it?
Oh yes. So the first present is to.
Do we have time to sit on his knee?
So this is the Danny, and this is inscribed things that Northerners like apparently from Bad Santa. Okay. So you have to open it up here now.
Open it up?
Yeah,
Okay.
open it up. Open it up.
Pale ale, that's good. Is this going to be a pair of gloves?
No, you gotta open it up. It's a bit. Yeah.
Greg, sausage roll.
Good man.
That's good. It's not warm though.
Wait, we bought it 3 hours ago.
Okay.
We don't have a runner here. Jesus, we're a small operation. This is to Martin, something for 2015. Here you go, Martin, and could you show it up to the crowd when you open it up, please?
You're so excited, aren't you?
Who helped you pick these? Who helped you pick these?
Don't worry. It was like we did a survey.
Okay.
Black Friday
Survey
shopping spree.
100 people.
There we go.
Very good.
Here you go, Knight.
Oh yeah, brilliant. All right, go.
One of the brightest smiles in ad tech. Bad Santa.
Good man. Anyone want to have a guess before I open
What's,
Go on, shout
what's
it out.
Nigel got for
it is?
Christmas?
Shout it out.
Fake tan.
Fake tan? That's unfair, Danny. All right, thank you very much.
And last but not least, Anto. Woo! To Anto, for the person with a helicopter view of the industry. And he has a helicopter view. He sees everything.
If this is a drone, I'm going to be so pissed off.
Yeah, what the hell?
Fucking
Slight discrepancy.
Round of applause.
Regifting.
Okay.
I've got a 9-year-old.
This is what the agencies are about. Repackaging stuff
Yeah.
and sell it on to something
Yeah,
else.
exactly. Present
It's never their own
arbitrage.
stuff. Never their own stuff. Oh, here's some data. Anyway, well, that was True Talk TV, and we look forward to the next episode, which is in 10 minutes. Thank you.